Let's move on to this now. There's been mixed reaction to the decision by ANC veteran Dr. Mavuso Msimang, his decision to return to the ANC. Now he resigned from the party, saying the party's failure to address the issue of corruption, for example, just one of the issues, could put it in trouble next year with the voters when it comes to the elections. But after a meeting with the party Secretary General and the veterans, he was persuaded otherwise. Let's speak to him now. He joins us live. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Why the about turn? Many have been asking.
Thank you very much for giving me a chance to explain this thing. I think the most significant development since I tendered my letter of resignation from the ANC has been the announcement by the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, to the nation that the National Executive Committee of the ANC has decided that those who were implicated in the Zondo Commission and in other commissions and other people who have committed who've got criminal records would not be allowed to represent the ANC in next year's provincial and national general elections. That's a very far-reaching statement. All the time, the people who called for this to happen were outsiders, members of the Veterans League, other people, saying, listen, your stocks are so low as a party, you're not going to cross the 50% line because of the perception that you're very comfortable with corruption. You live comfortably with that. So I thought this coming from the Secretary General informing South Africans that the decision has actually been taken, that such people would not appear, was very significant. And it would very much affect, I think, if it's implemented properly, the nature of politics beyond 2024.
Do you trust, though, that this will happen, given the fact that the amount of time that has passed since the Zondo Commission's report and the fact that others are, saying that they're taking it on review? So do you trust that you're going to see a list without some of those who are mentioned there?
That is point number one. The second reason is that since my resignation was publicized to the extent that it was, my friends in the Veterans League did say that it was a good thing that I did what I did, but that, I may have received plaudits for a brave act. But, the work remains to be done inside the party. I kind of left them in the trenches because they have consistently been fighting against this. Them it is who made it possible for me to meet Fikile Mbalula. Without them, facilitating this thing wouldn't have happened. But I also want to make it clear that it's not because I was convinced by the SG, Fikile Mbalula, that now we're going to do this and it's going to happen. We're actually being invited to, as veterans, to participate in making sure that this happens. There are processes that need to be carried out. They are very laborious. It is late. I don't even know that we would finish this thing in time for the closing of the list. But the fact that there is acceptance that this must be done was to me significant, sufficiently significant to think, let me not be a bystander outside. Let me go in and see how much I can join others and push for this thing to happen.
Are you able to share with us what is part of the process that you will all be embarking upon now to ensure that this doesn't happen?
Well, you need to draw up a list of the people who were so affected. One here is of 97 in all. They were expected to appear for before the ANC's Integrity Commission as per resolution again of the NEC. 5 only are said to have appeared. The other 92 did not. But of the 92, there are some who have been recommended for investigation and prosecution by the NPA. That's one category. There are others who, in the determination of the Zondo Commission, need further investigation before to decide whether they should be charged or not. These two categories are different. And we are putting forward to our input into this process is that those who have been referred to the recommended for referral to the NPA should receive the most immediate attention. If they didn't go to the Integrity Commission, that's already a breach of the resolution. Something must be done about that. How do you choose people who are defiant of your own resolution? This is what we are calling for, and this is what we expect to happen. Otherwise, this thing might not happen. The time for closing the list is quite near. So it's a formidable task. But I was not going to stand out and say, okay, do it now. You've committed to doing it. One wanted to participate in doing it, and one will report very honestly to the organization and maybe to the nation that this is where we are. These are the problems we're experiencing. This thing is happening or not quite happening.
And of course, I'm sure you've seen some of the reactions since your decision then to go back to the ANC. Some are saying that now your credibility is now brought into question because they now question the validity of you going back. Because firstly, when one reads through your letter of resignation, you paint a picture of a party that seems to be out of touch with South Africans. At the same time, there's also the issues of corruption and a myriad of other issues that have been raised. But others are saying that if you go back, then it means your credibility is now in question. How do you respond?
I go back without withdrawing all the allegations that were made in that letter. Everything that's in my resignation letter, it is not changed by this fact. What I am responding to, so I don't know about credibility. You are talking about a letter in which I said, bye-bye, I'm gone now. Mm-hmm. I am being invited, not by the top leadership. No one has spoken to me in the form of Cyril Ramaphosa, Gwede Mantashe. And the only reason we talked with Mbalula was because of that unfortunate statement that he had made about me. That was that he came in to resolve that, and as part of disagreement between myself and him, took a strong exception to this, extended then to him stating that our demand for this not to be allowed in our elections would be implemented. So please don't tell me that because Mbalula said this, now I'm convinced anything will happen. That was a by and by. This announcement is thanks to the insistence of the veterans that we hear from the leadership what their intention is.
And I wonder then what happens, because one of the things that you are saying is that you know, as this process now unfolds, it is to make sure that these people who are on this, who are mentioned in the report, do not find their names on the list. But then let's look at next year. We've seen some of the polls suggesting that we may be seeing a coalition arrangement. And it's something you were not comfortable with, even when you were, just after you had announced your resignation. Is it something that you've managed to wrap your head around, the possibility of an ANC going into a coalition?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I still think, though, some people would say I'm naive, that if the ANC actually acted transparently and effectively and removed people who are implicated, as discussed, I think many people, not everybody, others think this organization is dead completely. I know of very many people who have not been voting for the ANC, who would vote for the ANC, and there just might be a possibility that the ANC would get more than 50%. We are working towards that in order to avoid coalitions, because the state of coalitions in this country, two things about it. One is you don't want the ANC, which will be the biggest party, by the way, everybody agrees to that, going into a coalition with some party that whose credibility in terms of integrity is questionable. You really, so you want to avoid that if you can. But the issue, the discipline of parties coming together in coalitions is quite untested. On the record of their performance in metro municipalities, and I think even in a provincial one, it's likely to be the most unstable kind of government that's facing this country going forward. It's really going to happen.
So
and it would. I'm just arguing that if you did manage to get an ANC to cross the line, which had untainted people, if it did actually have untainted people, I put it to you that people would vote for it.
So if the ANC doesn't cross the line, and if you still see some of the names that you are counting amongst these 97, and if it's still then a party that, mirrors what you painted in your letter by next year during the elections, will you resign again?
Well, it's not important what I do. What is important is what we achieve or fail to achieve. It will not be hidden that, well, it will be obvious that they've failed to do that. I've not said all the ANC is suddenly a good organization. It's really, not every word I said in my letter stands. But I am saying one thing. Somebody asked me, what is the straw that broke your back? And I said, in the face of such imminent defeat for the ANC, because they are seen to be soft on corruption, why are they not taking action that's going to at least assure them a comfortable victory, at least a victory? Why are they not bothered sufficiently? And I thought this thing, I said in my statement, this exercise lacks urgency. There's just no urgency. A stronger word would have been, there's not much interest in this thing.
What's your take finally then on former President Jacob Zuma and his decision not to campaign and not to vote for the ANC next year? Because he also cited quite a myriad of issues on Saturday at his press briefing, those including the fact that he cannot even recognize, he says, the current ANC.
A bit rich, I would say, isn't it? If I were the ANC, I would congratulate him on offering not to campaign for us. This is precisely what we are talking about since you brought me onto this platform here. You need people with credibility to vote for the ANC. And if you don't get enough of them, rather sit on the opposition benches. Mr. Zuma, many years ago, more than 10, was said to have been corrupted by a person who was sentenced to 3 terms, 15-year terms of imprisonment. Shabir Sheikh. Shabir Sheikh is put in jail that long because he's alleged to have corrupted Zuma. Zuma reacts very predictably, admirably, says, wow, this thing, I was not in court. I will seek my day in court and make sure that I prove this wrong. As everybody knows in South Africa, I spent every one of those last 10, 12 years trying to avoid going to court. So I think I don't know about the technicalities. Anybody who talks like him should be expelled anyway. But for me, I would be very grateful if the ANC did not find itself asking people like Zuma to campaign for them.
And former President Thabo Mbeki, who says that his answer is still outstanding on whether or not to campaign for the ANC because he says he's also not happy with what's happening.
Yeah, he says that. You see, this is the whole issue. It is the tether. How long is the tether? He has reached the end of his tether and has decided that unless he is satisfied that the renewal program, which has got very specific steps for implementation, unless it's implemented, unless he is certain that the person who represents the ANC is actually a person who is who is ethical and so on. He says he would find it very difficult to put his stamp on that. If I found that the people who represented the ANC next year were all passed the ethical test, I would vote for them.
All right, let me thank you so much for your time. To appreciate it, that is ANC veteran Dr. Mavuso Msimang. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we've got more news for you, including that briefing and the developments around the former president, Jacob Zuma, and his announcement at the weekend, as well as the briefing by the KwaZulu-Natal ANC.